Well, the Senate is set to convene today at 11 a.m. They are supposed to vote at 12:30 today on a stopgap spending measure. Not everybody's happy about it, and whether they will actually come to a final resolution, unsure. But I guess snow is expected in Washington on Friday, so everyone is in a big hurry to try to keep the government from getting shut down.
We don't know if they have the votes.
Well, we think they do here, but there are other things at play.
Yeah.
So not everyone's happy. So whether they will go after the speaker, whether we will end up with something in the border, whether we'll have Ukraine funding, there's a lot of issues.
Nothing gets done unless they have some bipartisanship, right? I mean, really, nothing.
Yes.
Which means everyone's going to be unhappy.
Correct. The other thing that was coming out of D.C. yesterday, out of Trump camp, well, first of all, Trump is taking the day off to attend his mother-in-law's funeral. And the other thing that's coming out of Trump camp is apparent that it kind of affects Missouri, and I think we will want to get into, is Trump is basically saying, do not hire ex-DeSantis Jeff Rowe. And if you recall, Jeff Rowe got a start in Missouri. Axiom, his company, has a lot of works with a lot of candidates here in Missouri, and Trump is saying, don't work with him if you want anything to do with Trump camp. And
mean, headline on the Drudge Report, which formerly used to be conservative, and Matt Drudge has now gone the other way, alleging that Donald Trump might have syphilis because of some picture with some ulcers on his fingers. We're going to unpack that in a minute. But I wanted to follow up on what we were talking about before the break.
Wait, are we really talking about Donald Trump's fingers for a second time this week?
We're going to, because people are just joining us that weren't hearing us earlier. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, yesterday was, is his ring finger longer than his first finger? Because that is more common among psychopaths. That's enough. Okay. And, I'll bet people were walking around all day yesterday asking their friends and their family, John Marsh, hey, let me take a look at your palm, at your fingers.
Or their coworkers.
Yeah, coworkers, yeah. Yeah. Or the boss was walking around. I don't think the boss could do that. That might be some kind of a labor dispute in the making.
You have to go to HR and get them involved.
Yeah. Okay, so you were saying that, for folks who are just joining us, you were talking in the D.C. Rundown about some dissing of an operative here in Missouri, or that people might use as an operative, right?
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Rowe really, I think, got a start in Missouri, has a lot of people from Axiom here on the ground in Missouri. Obviously, he's had wild success.
Iowa,
gone,
too.
Yeah, and gone way beyond that. And worked for Cruz, I think, and has been in politics for a long time now. He had really good success with Glenn Youngkin in Virginia, and then following that, based on reports, he had some discussions of Trump on getting involved with Trump this cycle. Opted to get involved with DeSantis. We heard a fallout, about a couple weeks ago, that and with DeSantis's PAC, that Jeff Rowe was leaving the PAC, and now Trump. And this is it's all kind of like DC rumors, but it is being reported in Politico. So there are unnamed Republican operatives that are talking to Politico saying it's understood, and Trump has been telling people, don't go out and hire Jeff Rowe. And I think that has, massive implications in the state for people who, we saw how many people went up to Iowa to be on the Trump train, to get their picture, to say that they were there, all of that. I mean, everyone wants to be associated with Trump. They want to get his endorsement. That was the biggest thing in the Missouri Senate race. Everyone was waiting for the Trump endorsement. And many of I would almost presume that the majority of our candidates in Missouri, legislative and, are in some way affiliated with Axiom. So, is this true? How far does it go down? And I think Jeff Rowe didn't comment, but I think the president of the company did, and, just made a comment that, let's see, President Rob Phillips said in a statement, his firm has elected more conservatives to office than any other firm in the nation, which I think fact check probably true. Yeah. Answering President Trump's call for unity on Monday night, we are going to change the country for the better by electing conservatives.
Well, I don't know how did he do in the midterms and in 23?
I don't know the answer to that.
I still struggle, gang. I want to open a discussion about what does it mean in 2024 to support Donald Trump.
Oh, are you saying how did Trump do in the midterm elections? Not very good. Or how did Jeff Rowe do? I don't know.
Well, I mean, if Trump's candidates haven't done very well.
They did not.
What does it mean to support Donald Trump? I have my own thoughts. What do you think it means to support Donald Trump, Stephanie? Because everyone seems to be jumping on the bandwagon.
Well, and this is Trump's whole MO, and I actually kind of appreciate it, because I'm very much this way on like loyalty. I'm very black and white. Either you're with me or you're not, and I have a really hard time like coming back from that. Either you're on my team or you aren't.
Put it there.
Yeah, and
I think a lot of people struggle with that one-way loyalty street of Donald Trump.
Well, yeah, and I think in my personal life, right? Like if I, either you're my friend or you're not,
right.
and we don't. I'm not going to go back and forth with you. And if I find out that you're being disloyal, or that in some way you've done something to intentionally harm me, it's over, right? Like I just don't have any patience.
Well, we got to define what loyalty means. A true friend will tell you if you have spinach in your teeth.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If you tell Donald Trump he has spinach in his teeth, he's going to go on and make up a name for you and go on national media and Twitter you and everything else. That is a problem. A real friend doesn't do that to people.
But now, also, is a real friend going to work for someone who's running against you in a campaign? And that's, I think, what Jeff Rowe did. And so it's, he went and worked for other candidates. Now, I think,
I don't disagree with that. That's a business decision. It's the personal attacks. first Vivek is my friend, then he's not my friend, now he's my friend because he dropped out. I mean, I don't know. I understand there's a certain amount of that in politics, right? We define that there's a default level of animosity that has to exist at some level. But where is the civility in our party? And you would think a leader would want to engender that. I think of Ronald Reagan. I mean, he quipped about people, even the Lloyd, the Dan Quayle thing and the Lloyd Benson thing. Those are fun,
Yeah, well, and I think it was really smart of the Axiom folks to reference Trump's call for unity on Monday night, saying, "Look, this guy told us to unify on Monday night, and here he is, telling everyone to that we're on the outs." So, it's a little bit.
It was Walter Mondale, it wasn't that he. I will not use my opponent's youth against him or something.
Yes,
right.
yes.
He's referring to.
So, John, I mean, let me test that sensibility on you. I think to really support Trump would be to continue to, in some way or another, remind him of a tremendous character flaw that, especially when things come out during the deposition and the discovery phase in the trials. His character is going to be damaged in the mind of independents who are not total all-in.
Independents, I'll give you that.
Okay,
but I'd say that
aren't they going to make
Trumpers?
the difference? They're going to make the difference in the election.
Well, I don't know. The ever-Trumpers, if you believe the polling numbers, my candidate right or wrong, and it's just, we saw the numbers grow every time a new court case came down against a former president. His numbers went up in the polls.
Well,
among GOP people, I'm talking about the general election. That's my concern. To support Trump, if I had Trump in this room, I'd say, man, policy-wise, I'm behind you. I'd like to see a little movement on some Social Security and Medicare. But populism's fine. But, dude, don't just throw everyone under the bus the minute they question you or have a difference of opinion with you. It's not helpful.
But I think for independents, it goes far beyond Trump. That it's no longer even about Trump. It's about the government. And the government, they feel, even if you don't like Trump, still you can feel like the government is treating him wrongly. And I think every person in America has been in a situation themselves or someone in their family that they know bore the full weight of the government, bore a government investigation unfairly.
IRS, whatever.
You can't talk to a person who hasn't had that experience. And regardless of Trump, they're like, I don't like Trump, but I don't like the way the government's treating him. And I've seen the government do that in my own life. And that is what we have to put an end to. And so I feel like those people are mad. They've seen it in their own lives, and they can hold their nose on Trump and vote against the government behaving the way that it has.
He can be so charming. And even when he's toying around and just having fun, and that, I think we can get a certain amount of that. But I just, man, something about, I don't know why, but that Kayleigh McEnany thing just sticks with me. And she's not the only one. She defended him to the hilt. I mean, I remember during the convention in 2020, she gave that beautiful speech. And then to call her milquetoast and this and that. I mean, come on.
I mean, he has a weakness. I mean, with personnel. I mean, that's been one of his biggest things with the people that he hires and the way that he's treated people. And that I don't know that he would admit it, but a lot of people that are still like Trump would admit that's his weakness.
If he asked you to be a deputy attorney general in his administration, would you sign up?
Why? Yeah. I mean, of course. I think if the president calls, you have to answer, right?
Knowing that at some point in the future you're going to be thrown under the bus, or there's a very
I think you'd have to give it really serious consideration.
John, if you were being asked to be in the communications office at the White House, would you do it tomorrow? Would you sign up and tell your wife, "Hey, honey, we're moving. Sorry, we're out of here. We're gone."
Wow, sure, give it a shot. Boy, oh boy, being the press secretary or something for any president, boy, that's rough duty, except on payday.
As long as you don't get that pink, you're fired. Right? You get that Trump, you're fired. I think the guy is fantastic in so many ways. I just wish that someone would get his ear and say, you just always have to go too far, and you're gonna test the fringe of your supporting audience. And I'm afraid that if it's not him against Biden, the calculus changes. If it's him against Biden, I think he's got a very, very hot chance at that. If not, if it's Michelle Obama, watch out.
Yeah, we're in trouble.
Okay. All right, we'll step aside, and when we come back, we got to talk about this syphilis thing. I mean, it's all Drudge Report saying, and 7:50. Don't miss Jason Smith at 7:35. That'll be an interesting discussion because there's a lot going on. I mean, not only about, of course, the budget deal and keeping the government running and then tying it to border enforcement and Ukraine and all that, but what about the subcommittees? You know, I mean, the Committee on Accountability and all that. So.
And he was also on the ground in Iowa on Monday night, so I want to get his from the ground perspective. I haven't talked to anyone following the caucus that was there.
Yeah. So I'm going to play a little sound here. I just was cruising around last night, and I checked the various pages out, Drudge and Citizen Free Press and Town Hall, and all the ones that you guys probably look at. And here there's got a picture of Donald Trump with his right hand up.
This again? Were we measuring fingers?
No, but he's got ulcers. And I'm not sure if it's Photoshopped or whatever. And then it gets better because I start,
like where on the palm of his hand?
No, here. I got to show you. We got to put that up on the. Should we put it up on the page? No, we should. Well, look, when James Carville, I said I got Dana Carvey and James Carville mixed up. How could I do that? I know why.
You really want me to tell you?
Dana Carvey did a great age, old George Bush. Yeah, not going to do it. Not going to do it. No new taxes.
Not going to eat the broccoli.
That's right. And so then, here, I've got to do this. Let me get this thing going here because this was amazing. James Carville's probably lost his mind, right? I mean, he probably has lost his mind.
Mark Barden here at Sandy Hook Promise.
Hang on a minute. Hang on. We're going to get to it. I got to play this for you because this is very crazy. Here we go.
Drudge Report, and I think it'll still be up. There's a story that talks about Trump having hand cuts, and you can link to it. They don't look like cuts to me. They look like sores. And I've asked a number of MDs what medical condition manifests itself through hand sores, and the answer is immediate and unanimous: secondary syphilis.
Now that's just... I'm sorry, that's not the case. The sores that he describes are not the kind of sores you get except in very rare cases, and even then it doesn't look like it. So I don't know what MDs were telling him that's what secondary syphilis looks like.
So listener Gary sent us a link to a video of Trump trying to hold Melania's hand, and she kind of like leaves him hanging a little bit. And the caption just says, "Now we know why Melania won't hold Trump's hand."
What's secondary syphilis as opposed to just syphilis?
Well, so primary syphilis, you get sores on the private parts, which are painless, but they're like ulcers. They're like little ulcers, like you'd get a fever blister ulcer, but they're painless, little rolled edges on them. And then they go away. If you don't treat it, it goes away. But then you get secondary syphilis, which is more of like a measles kind of a rash generally. If you're going to get it, it can be on the palms and the soles, but it's more of a disseminated, just like a flat, discolored, spotted rash. Not these big ulcers, except in rare cases called Lunea maligna. And those are body wide and they're chest and torso and stuff. This just doesn't look like secondary syphilis.
Kind of looks like he grabbed a hot pan.
Yeah. Well, and he's a golfer. Maybe he was going crazy at the golfing range and he got some blisters. I don't know. And it could be Photoshop. John, I'm putting my bets on the Photoshop.
Yeah, I think you're right. And James Carville, consider the source. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe he knows where he speaks. Well, being married to Mary Madeline, I don't know.
And for those of you who want a little more, it turns out that I could go there in terms of, tertiary syphilis, which gets into your brain. I'm just saying. maybe a little
Al Capone, right?
Maybe a little projection on James' part. I'm just saying. No, I'm kidding.
Getting an edumacation this morning.
Yeah. No, but people get numbness, they get dementia, they get vision problems, and
has anyone checked Joe Biden?
It really harkens back to a very sad time in our history, the Tuskegee experiment. Where. And John, you remember what was the famous play that was made on this? You know what I mean. But there was a famous stage play, and the U.S. government scientists just purposely didn't treat black gentlemen in the South, in the the early 20s. I don't know. I have to go back and look it up, but just to see what the natural history of syphilis was, and that was sad. I mean, it just really was a tragic time in our history. It verges on a Nazi experiment.
Is the play called Fly?
No.
I mean,
No, the play was Miss Evers' Boys.
Yeah.
No, reading back now of some of these medical experiments that the government performed on people is actually terrifying. And I'll go back to my point about Donald Trump. And, I think people are angry, and I think I've read about those medical experiments, and they're thinking, we've seen what the government's done to us in the past. We've seen what they're currently doing to Donald Trump. If I can vote to make sure the government has less and can do less against individual rights, I'm going to vote that way.
Yeah. No, you're right. It was Miss Evers' Boys. You're right. And I've seen that play. It's quite dramatic, and it's really sad. I mean, these people they're scarred for life, and tertiary syphilis is very, very difficult to treat. But I mean, what have we come to in America when you have a formerly, prominent, this guy was Bill Clinton's, right? He was the driver of the Clinton era.
Oh, he was, a big player in Hillary's presidential bid.
That's right. I mean, he was the Karl Rove on the Democrat side, right? Yep. And now hurling, barbs like that, and they're just unsubstantiated and certainly not even based on any kind of truth. That's troubling. Why are we here? Can't we be more decent in this country? No.
And talk about issues.
Yeah, instead of talking about people's plastic surgery like Hauswirth and Marsh want to talk about all the time. No, I agree with Brian. He got worked up over that. I mean, we were talking about earlier. If you're just joining us, I mean, it seems like there's this avalanche of enthusiasm for all kinds of, because it's become more affordable. Plastic surgery and Botox and fillers, it's everywhere. Yeah.
Well, you were right on the money when you talked about, though, large and major markets in the TV biz. That's at least for the ladies and a lot of the guys. Right. I mean, that's cost of doing business.
That's part of their brand. That's their brand, is the way they appear as well as their content. 10, we're going to be talking with a gentleman that wrote a book that basically I think is maybe beginning to predict and echo what a lot of folks will be thinking, and that is, look, unless you get behind this guy, no matter what you think of his character, no matter, character flaws, we all have those, except for producer Hannah and Stephanie. John, only you and I and Brian have the character flaws. We know that, right?
Certainly.
Yeah.
I'm proud of them.
You betcha. We wear them proudly every day, every minute of every day. But basically, look, this is a pivotal election. This is a tipping point election, and we got to get behind the guy, and or else the democracy is lost. Meanwhile, the Democrats are saying the democracy is lost. How you doing? Welcome onto the program. 573-874-9390. Producer Hannah's over there.
Hello.
Look, all tattooed and wearing her earplugs. We have to talk about those. Stephanie's over there getting ready for the photo shoot today. If you're watching us on Facebook.
It's like going to war.
It really is.
Yeah.
There's so many paint layers.
Brian Hauswirth in the chair there. How you doing, Brian?
Good to see you. Good morning.
And John Marsh.
Yes, sir.
All right. John has agreed to move his except for this, and that would be all except for this segment, which is stories of the weird, unusual, and smelly space suits. That was yesterday's all
yes,
except for this. That you're going to move to 7:35 because Congressman Smith will be with us at 7:48. Right?
We will give way for the gentleman from Missouri.
That is very nice. That sounds very congressional of you, John. Very congressional of you. Okay, and Drew Thomas Allen at 8:10, and then Diane Gillespie from the Jefferson City Convention and Visitors Bureau. Now, I wanted to play this because it was a pretty powerful opening statement from a former Space Force lieutenant, I think a lieutenant colonel commander, a pilot, who wrote a book called Irresistible Revolution, talking about woke and introducing this into the military. Some say that has something to do with problems with recruitment in the military, and some of the comments under his testimony say that. I am a military person. We're both veterans. My husband and I, we discouraged our daughter, who had been talking about a career in the military, from joining due to the cesspool, DIE and CRT. Here's the testimony, just a little bit of it from this guy. His name is Matthew Lohmeyer. Listen.
Good morning. My name is Matt Lohmeyer, and I'm an Air Force Academy graduate, former F-15C fighter pilot, and was lieutenant colonel and commander in the Space Force. In 2021, I was fired from my command for writing a book trying to reverse the trend of the overt politicization of the uniformed services. Specifically, I criticized the military's diversity, equity, and inclusion trainings, which, at my own base, were illegally occurring despite an executive order from the commander-in-chief. The diversity, equity, and inclusion industry is steeped in critical race theory and is rooted in anti-American Marxist ideology. I watched DEI trainings divide our troops ideologically and in some cases sow the seeds of animosity toward the very country they had sworn an oath to defend.
Now, John, Brian, even if we dilute that and say, okay, this is a guy who wrote a book. I mean, clearly he's passionate about it, but he alleges that this is fundamentally and dare I say existentially threatening the morale of our U.S. service members. Do you think this is just political hype to sell a book, or do you have any reporting? Have you heard anything? I mean, what are you hearing?
Not heard anything about his testimony.
But what about within the ranks?
I have not heard a lot of. I mean, we hear criticism of this sort of thing, but I've not heard it specifically with the military.
I've heard it with veterans.
I have.
You have, okay?
Yeah.
We have former coworker who is now a police officer in a large southern city, who was an Army reservist while he worked for Zimmer Communications, who'd been in at least he was I think an E5 sergeant by that time. Mm-hmm. He said he got out because his drill weekends in the Army Reserve consisted of nothing but suicide prevention and anti-sexual harassment courses.
Yeah,
and he got tired of it every weekend.
Yeah, and
every drill weekend.
Are our military branches, are they really the right place to do social engineering and experimentation with what is a revolutionary change in our country's culture?
Bill Clinton thought so.
Yeah, but I mean,
that's when it started.
You're right, and look, you see it. I mean, it's come up in the discussion concerning the exit door that blew out of the Boeing Max 737-9, right? It missing bolts, and people are saying, well, look, could it be that some of the diversion to satisfying ESG standards and incorporating that. They're talking about that as being a metric that we should look at Davos, that companies should be. That's part of the Davos World Economic Forum thing. If you're going to be a global country and be successful, you're going to incorporate that. Could there be that they're just directing resources away from their core business, and then we have safety and quality issues?
I think you're exactly right, and the airlines are taking a look at it now after that door issue, and I think they should be, because it's what happened was terrifying, and we know that issue potentially could have happened to other planes, but it goes even further back beyond the airlines. If you recall, when there were all of the bank failures just a couple years ago, and they said, here you were focused on all this ESG and all this other stuff, and fundamentally, what do you need from a bank? I need you to give me, if I put money in, I need it back. Fundamentally, what do I need from an airline? I need you to fly me safely where I want to go. And so when we lose that concentration on fundamentals and start worrying about all this other stuff, we've seen there are breakdowns.
Yeah. I'm seeing it in the medical training field. I'm hearing it from people that are teaching students, but they're not at the boss level. They're professors. And I'm hearing from business people that this drive, this expectation, this hysteria towards making sure that everyone knows we're waving the DEI and CRT flag, it turns people off that are trying to do their daily job, sitting at their cubicle at their computer or on the line, bolting the steering wheel on the. They're getting tired of that, and I think will become an increasing component of the discussion around this election. Brian?
We'll see. I mean, certainly former President Trump has raised that issue before. He certainly raised it, and I expected, of course, he's got to win the primary first. But yeah, I've not, as far as the gentleman that you played that wrote the book, I have not heard, until you played that, I had not heard that soundbite.
All right, well, let's pivot to another story now that really impacts us here in Missouri. Directly. I think the story we just talked about impacts us because I'm telling you, whether it's at the company level, at the military level, wherever, school, it's everywhere. And I think there's been more and more pushback because of courageous people like this who will say, I think, what most of us are feeling. Governor Mike Parson has been accused of illegally using his office to meddle in the primaries. John, did you see that story in the Missouri Independent yesterday?
I did see that story. Some pretty heavy allegations. Reference Attorney General Bailey.
Yeah, when he appointed Andrew Bailey as Attorney General in late 2022, Missouri Governor Mike Parson vowed he'd have quote, the full resources of the governor of the state of Missouri, close quote, to ensure his success in the new job. On the political side, Parson added, I'll do everything I can. This is reported by Jason Hancock in The Independent. Apparently, I guess some people from Parson's office joined Bailey's office. According to this story, and by September, the governor's office turns its attention to a national political organization that Parson felt wasn't properly supporting Bailey's campaign for a full term. And so he wrote a letter to the executive committee of RAGA, the Republican Attorneys General Association, written on official letterhead, chastising that organization for how it was treating Bailey. And the story goes on to say that basically he was using government resources in a political way. John, your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if I wouldn't say much ado about nothing, but I know one of the staffers who left was the deputy general counsel who worked under Andrew Bailey when he was the general counsel for the governor. So that wasn't much of a stretch.
No.
That person followed him to the AG's office, but there's some reasonably scathing allegations made in the Missouri Independent story.
Parsons' decision to use, this is according to the story in the Missouri Independent, Parsons' decision to use his office to pressure RAGA to support Bailey is drawing accusations that the governor may have violated a state law prohibiting the misuse of public resources for campaign purposes. Stephanie?
Well, I would say it's much to do about nothing, but notably, I am not objective on this topic as we have a relationship with both Parson and Bailey.
What does the law say, though? I mean, is there...
There is a statute in Missouri that says you can't basically use your official office or public funds for campaign purposes.
Okay.
It's first I've heard of I've seen the article. First I've heard of it. We'll see, and we'll see what happens. The one case that I remember specifically where this, not necessarily something like this, but similar, where you're talking about resources, was the Attorney General at the time. His name was William Webster, and that was back in 1992. John and I will both remember that. He ended up, well, it was the Attorney General himself. He ended up going to prison. But, John, there were 2 different federal grand juries investigating him. They were looking at the second injury fund. They were looking at a land deal. They were looking at all sorts of things. And as I recall, after all the reporting in the Post-Dispatch, and it was a lot of reporting at the time, what they ended up getting him on was a copy machine. I believe he had made copies on a copy machine. And from memory, that's what it was. But he did. He ended up going to prison. Ended up losing the gubernatorial race too in 1992.
That was the deal too with Bill Webster. It was back with, I think it was conspiracy and embezzlement charges.
Yeah.
Using state staff and, like Brian said, office equipment for political.
Yeah, but really, in terms of magnitude, if you're making some copies,
I'm going from memory, but there were a lot of allegations before that. But that's what they ended up getting him on.
That, and then you see the statute used against locals a lot too, and because they just don't know better, and so a lot of times these complaints get heard over at the Ethics Commission, and so you see especially school boards and local governments when they're going out for a bond issue, they don't realize, oh wait, that's a campaign, and so they start copying the bond issue flyers saying vote yes. They start using their official emails to send out emails saying vote yes, and usually they get a slap on the wrist by the Missouri Ethics Commission.
Yeah, right. I don't think as I recall in those instances, it hasn't really amounted to criminal prosecution or anything bad. Okay. All right. Well, this is an interesting story. We'll have to follow and see if it has legs or not. I don't know. I know you guys will be on top of it, and we'll see what happens with it. But, we wanted to report it because it's out there in the Missouri Independent. So we'll see. When we come back, it's What's Hot with Hannah. We'll see what's going on with Hannah and how her tattoo is doing, and those earplugs, maybe, on Wake Up in Missouri. Stay there. It's crazy.
Yeah, welcome to the Midwest.
No.
No, I have a story about a gentleman who had a rough flight to India, but you teased that I was going to talk about my tattoo and my earplugs.
I want to talk about both. We have time because it's 7:25. You notice I'm on time. You don't want to give me credit, do you?
That is true.
Okay.
That is very true. Now, Stephanie, do you enjoy, this is a weird question, do you enjoy using the restroom on an airplane?
Absolutely not.
They're tiny.
They are.
It's, like I've heard of little kids being scared of getting sucked out of the plane when they go to flush the toilet.
Yeah, that's the only thing worse than having to use the restroom on a plane is to have to take a kid in the restroom on the plane, because then you're smashed in there and they're touching everything, and it's the worst.
Well, this might be, not a new fear unlocked, but, the next step of that.
Great.
A guy on Tuesday, he was flying on SpiceJet, which is an Indian airline.
Okay.
He
Lots of curry powder floating around. Yep.
Yeah.
I thought they were a band back in Britain in the 90s.
And, that's the Spice Girls, John.
Oh, okay.
Oh, boy. So he went to the restroom on his flight. The flight was like an hour and 45 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
And he got stuck in there because the door lock malfunctioned.
Oh, my gosh.
And
no.
Not fun.
They couldn't get him out. So he was in there for like the whole last hour of the flight. The flight attendants tried everything that they could to free him from the very small airplane restroom. They had to slide a note under the door, and it says, quote, "Sir, we tried our best to open the door. However, we could not open it. Do not panic. We are landing in a few minutes."
Oh my gosh, there's no seatbelt in there.
So please close the commode lid and sit on it and secure yourself. As soon as the main door is open, an engineer will come. Do not panic.
Is there a seatbelt?
The only thing could have made that worse.
What?
Heavy turbulence.
Oh. I picture a dude sitting on a closed toilet lid with his arms against the wall because it's very small, just like bracing himself for impact is what I'm picturing.
I picture myself, since I have a flight today, going to buy some Depends before I get on the airplane.
I have to tell you, I have so much empathy for women that have to use that because, guys, let's be honest about it. The things, the planes bouncing around, and you walk in there half the time and you can tell that the guy's missed the target or something hasn't happened right.
Well,
and
even in restrooms that don't bounce around, that's a problem.
Yeah, I'm thinking about some poor woman has to come in here and use this, and so I usually find
myself try to hold a squat.
I find myself cleaning it off and trying to leave it pristine, better than I found it.
That's nice of you.
But if there's a long line, of course, I don't have as much time to do that. But I always worry about that because those places can get worse than your worst porta potty. It can be really bad on a crowded flight.
This gentleman was refunded the cost of his flight.
Thank goodness.
Which is probably good because he didn't get to sit in his seat for over half of it.
These airliners just can't get it right. They either have a door that blows out or one that locks up.
I was going to say, pros to being in the bathroom, you can't get sucked out.
That's right.
My thought is, ask Stephanie's dad, ask Pops about using the honey bucket on a C-130 and go from there.
In the last 45 seconds here, tell us about your earplugs.
Oh, so
they're really cool.
They're called Loop earplugs. They look like little wireless earbuds. Mm-hmm. They've got the soft tip on them, but they fit inside my ear, and they kind of tone down the background noise. But yet, if someone is directly talking to me, I can still hear it clear as day.
All right.
I don't know how it works, but it's really cool.
Well, in an environment where you share space with other people working and talking and moving
How about plastic surgery, lesser-known procedures? Palm line surgery. People who believe in palm reading but aren't happy with their own lines now have a way to cheat fate. Palm line surgery uses the electric scalpel to create artificial palm lines.
Oh, my gosh.
They say this is big in Japan, where women request a stronger love marriage line and men request a more prominent wealth line.
Oh, my goodness.
Poker tox uses Botox and facial filler injections to manipulate the facial appearance of gamblers. The goal is to eliminate the poker player's tells or expressions that would reveal if they have a good hand or a bad hand.
Poker tox. I like
Poker tox.
I told my husband when I first got it, I overdid it the first time, and I said, if I'm surprised, I'll do this because my face is going to look the same.
Correct. Well, Steph, here's your next one. Ear cropping, also known as elfing, gives the ears a pointed shape with a pronounced tip by removing tissue. Procedure favored by members of the cosplay community and also Mr. Spock.
Yeah, descendants of Leonard Nimoy. Yeah,
I have kind of an elf ear, like, naturally.
Do you?
Just a little bit, yeah.
Well, here's one you can go for. Perhaps the creepiest example on the list, tongue bifurcation.
Ooh.
Oh, I've seen that.
Oh, it's so
Procedure
creepy.
to split the tongue down the middle to look like a snake's forked tongue. Ouch!
Oh.
And now you know the rest of that, Nori.
Oh, man.
And you talk like this.
Yeah. Well, you've seen some of these folks that get the tattoos that make them look like animals, where they have like lizard type of, scales and stuff.
Or the body modification implants with the big spikes and all that stuff sticking out of their faces.
I saw someone the other day, they had a body mod, and it looked like they had put, an inch tall little bowl or like a ring on the top of their hand, and they were using it for ranch dressing.
Whoa,
and
no.
They always had a bowl to like dip whatever
like a little
in.
dipping cup?
Yeah,
that's at least practical. Give them some points for that.
Oh, that's disgusting.
As opposed to devil horns or something.
Well, next you'll see people embedding the phone holders onto their fingers with a magnetic thing.
There you go. That's a good idea.
Yeah, there you go. for your selfie deal, right?
I do wonder why. I mean, we microchip our pets, right? I do wonder why we don't microchip humans.
I'm fully convinced that rich people do. I'm fully convinced if you have
and the conspiracy theorists say the U.S. military special ops folks are all chipped.
Right.
And I've maintained, the whole deal behind medical, interoperability of medical charts and the electronic medical record. The idea was, Stephanie, if you're traveling to where you're traveling today and you get an appendicitis, and let's say you have diabetes or you have allergies or whatever, boy, all they'd have to do is get into the common electronic medical record. Oh, okay. Or let's say you're unconscious, Well, what's wrong with having a little chip that's scanned every time you get a new procedure, or you get a MRI of your brain or your lung, and then doctor may want to know, and they could go zip, scan it.
You're really that is shooting high in the sky. I mean, I feel like every time I go to my doctor's office, they ask me questions that they should know. They're like, when was this? When was this? I'm like, I don't know. You did it. When was it? Like, they ask me the same. And I'm like, don't you have my records? Like, why am I filling all of this out? I mean, it's even if you go to the same place, I feel like they have no clue.
I've often thought it would be cool if we had what amounts to like a loadable debit card. If everyone had that. Think of it like an ID.
I don't say the word card around.
No. That you could opt in and say, look, I want you, doctor, to plug this into this common system, like a quadraphonic, stereophonic, V8, whatever.
That someone could hack, or they could steal it.
Well, just be.
What
Does
about
that mean because people go through stoplights, we shouldn't have stoplights?
I know. I have most of my like pertinent, really important medical information saved in my iPhone, and iPhone was trying to do that.
There you go.
What's your blood type? Are you
Right.
an organ donor?
Yep.
Who's your emergency contact? Like that health app, if you haven't done that, you can put a lot of that helpful information in that then somehow I think medical professionals know how to access without being able to access the rest of your
It's
stuff.
enormously helpful, and it'll in these days when docs are so distracted and don't have enough time with you anyway, to have that information available so that's easily obtainable and however you want to get it. But then doctors are freaking out on the other end because they're worried, oh my gosh, if you text it to me, oh my God, it's not HIPAA secure. Well, if you initiate a text and it's not secure, I'm sorry, that's good. Yeah. And, that you've broken that HIPAA secure. Most people tell me, I don't care. I just want you to have the information.
Well, don't they now have the Medic Alert bracelet necklaces that actually have a thumb drive on them and have some memory that stuff is on those?
I hadn't seen that. It's a good idea.
Smart.
Yeah.
No, I much prefer when my doctor's office has a portal that I can, send my doctor or my nurse a message through rather than having to call. And then, of course, the doctor's with the patient, so then they have to take a message, and then you wait for the doctor to call you back. Yeah. It's so much more convenient to just be able to send a text or, a message through a patient portal.
Well, okay, but here's a problem, and this is becoming an evolving problem in medicine, because I want you to hear the other side of the story.
Sure.
If I send a text to you as an attorney, if you're my counsel, if I send an email to you, you're going to cha-ching, cha-ching. You're going to do a bill for that, right?
Right.
Okay, and maybe not for every little thing, but I mean, you will if it's substantive, right?
Right.
If it's like, can we have a call tomorrow? You're not going to charge me, are you?
But if you write me a big long paragraph and I have to analyze it and then respond.
Well, this is the problem with the portal. If you, Hannah, see that blood was drawn today and you're a little bit anemic, your hemoglobin's down, and you write a little letter, what does that mean? Well, I'm sorry, that's a big discussion.
Yeah.
And if you expect me to answer back, guess what? That's not a billable event.
Well, with stuff like that, I would assume that they want me to schedule another appointment.
No, you know what? In my practice, it's already prepaid. You're just paying a retainer fee, so I answer you or I call you or whatever. But see, now, under the current medical industrial complex, there's a code for everything. And while there's a code for that, you can't, now under the exception of COVID, yes. But in general, you can't really send a bill for that, and insurance companies won't reimburse it.
Yeah.
So, and plus, there's the danger that you have something that's 0.001 out of the normal range, and it shows red. And then you're freaking out, and you're calling your doctor at 2 a.m. in the morning, and it's like, that's not clinically significant. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. So there's problems with that mechanism, too. I'm not saying you shouldn't have access, but you should. Yeah. So, at any rate, we're going to break, and we're going to get back with Jason Smith and spend a little time with him because he's coming up. He's from the House Ways Well, don't you? I've got a lot on your agenda.
We're staying a little busy, but, my granddad always taught me you have to walk and chew gum, so the more that you can handle, the better. And that's what we're doing.
There's a lot of suspense over, how we're going to get something through to fund the government, secure the borders, and for those who want some Ukraine and Israeli and Gaza humanitarian, all of that funding. I mean, how are we going to put all that together? The Senate's going to do something today, we hear. What's going on the House side?
There's lots of negotiations right now with Speaker Johnson and Leader Schumer. Being a divided government, that creates a tough balance. And what the Senate is doing today is they are voting, I think, at 12:30 for a clean continuing funding resolution. And that will only allow government to continue to fund at its current levels for the next couple weeks so that they can hopefully get to an agreement on funding in general. And that would prevent a government shutdown. And it looks like they'll probably pass it in the Senate and come over to the House. And I expect that the House will pass it as well. The question is how long will it be for? Will it be for 3 weeks? Will it be for 4 weeks? But it will definitely be throughout the process to help continue the negotiations. The speaker and the leader and the minority leaders, Mitch McConnell and also Hakeem Jeffries, was at the White House yesterday trying to negotiate the border policies and also the Ukraine-Israel funding. So those are a separate bucket, but there's a lot of talk going on right now, especially in the leadership aspect.
Now, you also recently announced a new tax framework that will give relief to families and Main Street businesses. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, that's been the focus of the Ways and Means Committee. Our focus is all tax policy. And for the last several months, I have been negotiating with my counterpart in the Senate, Senator Wyden, of a tax package that will help deliver for working class families, small businesses, and farmers. And, it's a give or take. We came up with what I believe is a very fair agreement that hopefully can make it through the House and the Senate. It helps with the child tax credit for families. It also helps small businesses with their immediate expensing on their taxes, which is a huge driver for a lot of small farmers, manufacturers. But there's a lot of other provisions in there. There's also disaster relief. It's a tax break for people who face tornadoes, hurricanes, wildfires. So hopefully we can get this through. It would be the first time in years that there's been a bipartisan tax package that has been able to pass Congress.
Congressman Jason Smith, chair of the Ways and Means Committee, joins us on Wake Up Mid-Missouri this morning. John?
Congressman, talk to us about the impeachment effort, where we're at with the hearings over Alejandro Mayorkas and all. Are you going to be able to get him out of there? Or where are we at?
The impeachment hearings on the Secretary of Homeland is happening all within the Homeland Committee under the chairman there in Tennessee. When you look at the law after law that he has not enforced or that he has went the other way, there are clear indications that he has not been following the duties that he is assigned to do as Secretary of Homeland and making sure that our border policies, border laws are enforced. So that's continuing to tick up. When you look at the impeachment inquiry from the sense of Joe Biden that I've been a part of, today I brought in Kevin Morris for depositions that we will start today at 10 o'clock. And Kevin Morris, to remind you all, is the gentleman that came out from the IRS whistleblower testimony that paid more than $2 million of Hunter Biden's taxes and then also gave Hunter Biden about $3 million additional dollars just to sustain his high-class living. And he's a huge donor of Joe Biden. And so he's needing to answer a lot of questions because items that the IRS whistleblower said continued to keep pointing to Mr. Kevin Morris.
Some refer to him as the sugar lawyer, I think, right? Yeah.
That's exactly a Hollywood lawyer from California, big Democrat donor. And it's interesting. We've talked about all of Hunter Biden's paintings. Just in the last 2 weeks, we had the owner of the art gallery that has been selling all of Hunter Biden's paintings. He noted that Mr. Kevin Morris has purchased more of Hunter Biden's paintings than anyone else. He has spent more than $875,000 in purchases of Hunter Biden's paintings.
Congressman, we appreciate you joining us live and a lot of important issues. I want to talk about a district issue that is a huge issue in your district. Tyson Foods is closing, as you know, the huge plant in Dexter. If anybody's been through Dexter, they know in Stoddard County how big that plant is. Tyson said flat out they weren't going to sell the plant. You actually called the Tyson Foods CEO and demanded they change their tune. Apparently, they are going to allow a new company to purchase it. What did you tell him, and what did he say?
I've been to this Tyson plant several times while serving as a congressman down in that area, and the announcement of that closure was such a surprise, and it affected 700 people. And every time I went to that Tyson facility, they kept telling me how the U.S. can't produce enough poultry to make demand by 2030, and that they were going to continue to expand the plant. They actually was growing the plant. And so this announcement was pretty shocking. And then when I was told by a lot of the producers who have invested so much money in their chicken houses with the expectation that they're going to be selling to Tyson with a lot of risk, I said, how can you say that there's a shortage of poultry, but you will not allow another entity to purchase this property or purchase your facility if it's a competitor? And we had a good conversation. And he saw the reality of why I think it's pretty important, and they made the right decision. That's all I'll say. They made the right decision because large corporations should not be able to come in and manipulate markets and affect rural communities in such a damaging way.
Congressman Smith, I have to ask you about this. We saw the Boeing incident where the plane door blew out of the side. Testimony the other day by a former Space Force commander about how CRT and DEI has infiltrated and eroded morale in the military. What, if anything, can Congress do to try to rein in government social engineering and, on the other hand, make sure that corporations are about quality and safety first and DEI and wokeness second?
That's the priority that they should be making. I mean, even the shareholders of these big corporations, they should be demanding the fiduciary interest. These corporations should be focused on their management and making sure they're producing the best products possible, not diversity and equity and woke policies. Work on what you're tasked at to do and to do your best at that. And Congress has been holding a lot of hearings, especially lately in regards to that, whether it's in the Transportation Committee, whether it's in the Oversight Committee. But there's a full court press right now at looking at how these corporations need to look at their priorities as actually serving the American public.
Well, boy, it's a big deal, and it's impacting everyone's life here in Missouri and, of course, across the country. And I'm glad you're on top of that, as well as all In the Trump train?
Not quite yet.
And John Marsh, who's not going to join the Trump train just yet, right, John?
Oh, stay tuned.
All right. Well, speaking of the Trump train, a friend of mine, Drew Thomas Allen, is a great, prolific spokesman and patriot for American greatness and American first. And he's written a book called America's Last Stand. Will you vote to save or destroy America in 2024? And Drew, welcome to the program. It looks like this is things are coalescing behind Mr. Trump, aren't they?
Yeah, we just saw Senator Ted Cruz come out and endorse President Trump, which I was waiting on. I was sitting there waiting anxiously, but there it came. People are coming around finally to accepting just reality. It's nothing against anybody who supported anybody else. It's not to say that, any of your reasons for withholding that support, you didn't have any legitimate reasons, but we've got to be pragmatic at this point. People see the writing on the wall. Now, I, of course, Randy, as you know, saw the writing on the wall like 8 months ago when I started writing my book, which is America's Last Stand, which is about 2024 is going to be a rematch between Trump and Biden or some other Democrat who replaces him at the last minute. So I was a little bit ahead of the curve, but here we are. Yeah. It's looking inevitable, and people are starting to get on it. And that's good. That's good for America.
And I've talked about it. I'm very, very concerned that as long as Trump is facing Biden, and as long as the arrows and barbs that are thrown at him during these upcoming trials, should they occur before the election, which I think in some people's minds can raise some concerns, right? There'll be some things thrown against the wall that may stick in especially independent voters' minds as far as nefarious behavior, whether or not they're true. I mean, perception can be reality. I think you're right that uniting behind Trump makes a lot of sense, but you've seen the polls, haven't you, that suggest that if it's Trump versus anyone but Biden, he doesn't do so well. And if he's convicted, he doesn't do so well. What are your thoughts about that potential reality up the road?
Well, a couple of things. Firstly, I don't buy that for a second. I mean, there's kind of, you can call it a psyop, if you will. It's become this kind of trite phrase now. But this idea that Trump is just hugely unpopular and can't win against Biden in 2024 because of 2020, I think that's actually absurd. I mean, one, Trump did win in 2016. He did lose in 2020, but, I'll save that conversation.
What happened? Looks like we lost him.
He said he was going to save that conversation for later. I'm out of here.
I guess he did.
Yeah.
I heard an interesting point about 2020 as well, because if you recall, that was right during, people, I heard the commentary, I don't fault Trump for losing in 2020, which, that was somebody else's opinion. But, the Democrats did change a lot of the rules around before the 2020 election.
Yes.
And a lot of the rules, even if they have now reverted, they were different because of quote unquote COVID.
Right.
So, Trump was definitely, against a battle that really, he couldn't. We didn't get out. Republicans didn't get out ahead on that fight and didn't win as much as we should have on all of those election rule changes. And that, I think, really did hurt Trump. And, he came awfully close.
Okay, well, you're right. He came close. And it's only going to, it's between 100 and 150,000 voters in 4 or 5 states that are going to make the difference, right? So we can talk about it all day long. I think Missourians have a lot to say more about the Trump-endorsed candidates or not. I think that's where the Trump coattails can have a big effect, here in Missouri.
Certainly.
And I'm hoping that pro-Trump, pro-GOP people will be strong enough so that those coattails will help substantiate and validate and extend the GOP majority, right? Because, it's got to remain strong to get anything done.
Yeah, on the statewide level, I don't have any concerns about Josh Hawley. I don't have any concerns about our statewide races. Those are all going to be decided in the primary. Those I think will be solidly red. But certainly we saw that we lost a couple of really close House races. And at the state legislature, there are going to be some close districts. And so, a really strong Trump coattails could help us save some of those.
Right. Drew Thomas Allen joins us again here. It sounds like the anti-Trump people may have cut the connection, Drew. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They did. The FBI got me again. Happens all the time out here in the Napa Valley.
Yeah.
But Pelosi, who lives 10 minutes away from me, she put the call out.
But what about the polls that say that really, it doesn't, there's several polls before Christmas said, if he's convicted, there's a lot of people that would abandon Trump that otherwise are in favor of him. Roughly a third of respondents, according to one poll, said a conviction would make them less likely to vote for Trump. That's a significant number.
Yeah, it's a significant number. Two things. I don't believe that those polls stick and that those are permanent as we move forward. If that were to actually occur, that remains the reality. People have to understand that one of the primary reasons to be supporting Trump, given his inevitability as the candidate, as the nominee, is that what they're doing to him cannot be allowed to stand. This is truly bigger than Trump. No president in American history, former president, et cetera, has ever been indicted for any crime committed. Every single one of these, and I go through all of them in the book, every single one of these fake charges, fake indictments, all of this stuff, none of it's legitimate. And you can look at Bill Clinton, who actually committed a crime. He perjured himself, amongst other things, when he said, I did not have sexual relations with that woman before a grand jury. He was not indicted for that. They actually dropped the case. They made him pay like $20,000, and it was related to his law license, I believe. You can go back to the Civil War, and you can look at General Lee, a actual insurrectionist, a true traitor, right? He led the Confederacy. A grand jury indicted him, but ultimately they dropped the charges to heal the nation. So this is a joke. This is a banana republic stream of tactics, if you will, and the country and a republic is at stake if they can do this. So that has to be the messaging, and I think the American people are actually getting that. I do not believe that the bag of bones in the White House with the oatmeal brain and the diaper, I do not believe that he or any other Democrat can actually beat Trump in 2020. But I think we have to change our attitudes and be excited about our candidate and understand the stakes and back him enthusiastically, because what happens is we interact with people. You know, we as individuals, Randy, Hannah, everyone, have a lot of influence that we don't really acknowledge sometimes. It's not just me on my show or you on this radio show or whatever. We interact with people on a daily basis. And for one thing that kills us is this acceptance of the left's narrative. So in the past, right, you'd meet some Democrat before the 2020 election, for example, and you might talk about politics for a second, and you find out they're on the other side, or even meet somebody who thinks like you and they're going to vote for Trump, and you're reluctant. I wish Trump wasn't our candidate, but I don't like it either, but I'm going to vote for him because I have. I mean, that's ridiculous. We don't need to behave that way. The country's at stake. That optimism and that enthusiasm is contagious, and we cannot accept the left narrative time and time again. I mean, the problem is, if you compare Trump to anybody on the left, he's Mother Teresa.
That's true. Trump on his worst day is better than anyone on the other side.
Now, we've seen Trump call for unity, but now we've seen also he is calling for people to disassociate with folks who were, for instance, connected with Ron DeSantis. So, how can Trump really bring unity to the party? And is there a VP candidate he can bring that will carry that unity message forward?
Well, I think for some people, there's nothing he can do to create unity. I don't think it's a majority of the American people, but certainly, look, I mean, it's ugly everywhere. Politics is a blood sport. You see Trump's, influencers and so on and so forth that can be nasty, just like DeSantis ones can. If you're judging based on what you see on social media, for example, I mean, the DeSantis influencers are saying, I'll never, ever vote for Trump. Basically, they're saying, I'll support Biden over Trump because I hate Trump. He's a Democrat. And unfortunately, these individuals have really made Trump the scapegoat for their problems. So they want to blame everything on him rather than the Democrats, actually. So he didn't finish the wall. Well, why didn't he finish the wall? Because rhinos and the establishment prevented it from happening. But he did get a lot done still. When it came to, Christopher Wray's appointment at the FBI, terrible, terrible appointment, right? I think we can agree at this point. He's a deep stater, obviously, and no good for this country. And he's a liar. And he's perjured himself, too, and he's still in there. But anyway, yes, that was Donald Trump's appointment, but every Republican almost universally supported Wray, including, Tubby Chris Christie and even Ron DeSantis himself said that was a phenomenal selection. So to rewrite history and do all this is problematic to me. I think that people will back Trump, though, at the end of the day, because people are going to realize that the stakes are too high. And some of this stuff's gonna go away to some extent. When we have to coalesce at some point, and my point is, the longer we wait, the less time we have to convince Americans of what's really going on in 2024 and how important it is for their futures and their present to re-elect Trump.
Talking with Drew Thomas Allen, author of America's Last Stand. Will you vote to save or destroy America in 2024? And there's no doubt about it, Drew, that it seems like self-proclaimed principled Republicans will die on a hill rather than coalesce and take a lesson from the Dems, who unite early and give a consistent messaging. And I think that's your message in the book. And I would agree that, sometimes you got to hold your nose for a person that's got character flaws and, tuck that under your coat and put it away. Because, right, we've got big fish to fry. This is a pivotal election. We say that every time. I believe we are at a tipping point. And I think that's the message of the book, too. Appreciate you being with us, brother. Thanks so much.
Hey, thank you. Talk soon.
All right. Yeah, it's an interesting time. I don't know. I for one, am concerned that we're not going to be able to get that coalescence, because you hear people, Stephanie, that are just absolutely, I don't care, come heck or high water, I am not voting for that guy. And I think that's a huge mistake.
I think it is too.
But I think a lot of that, they may be persuadable depending on that VP pick. You were so right, because we have to look not only at this coming election, but beyond. You could be looking at 12 years of magic, right? Well,
and what we aren't talking about yet either is the influx of third-party candidates. I mean, we still kind of have Joe Manchin out there talking about things. We've got RFK out there. I mean, what kind of impact? I mean, if it really does come down to a very close election, could there be a spoiler?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, this is unprecedented, and it's going to be interesting to see. I think this is going to make the Ross Perot entry look like, child's play. This is going to be crazy. We're going to step aside, and when we come back, check into what's going on in the markets and the biz world with the Morning Bell with Stephanie before she heads out. We'll be right back. on in the business world. We've had some turbulence in the markets.
Yeah, we know, I think 2 days ago the market closed down. Yesterday we started with futures in the red, and this morning futures are mixed. Actually, S&P and NASDAQ are positive. NASDAQ quite a bit positive. Dow just slightly in the negative as the market prepares to open this morning. Now, it's almost too early to start talking about this, but I guess not quite. Since we decided we want to talk about Christmas on November 1st, some companies are already talking about what they might be doing for Valentine's Day. I guess we're less than a month away, though,
that's right. Yeah.
So, a good reminder for all the men out there. You've got less than a month to make your Valentine's Day plans. Barilla, the pasta company, I think I'm saying that right. I don't eat a ton of pasta, but they are reintroducing their Valentine's Day themed pasta, and they're offering a $33,000 ring to one lucky customer. Now, Hannah, you had some weird shaped pasta at some point. Was it character shaped macaroni and cheese?
Okay, listen. You leave my Kraft macaroni and cheese out of this. Okay.
So is this heart-shaped pasta, I assume?
Yes. It's actually kind of cute. So maybe you have a nice dinner at home and you make this heart-shaped pasta. But I have a bone to pick, I think, and it's something else that goes on my list when it comes to that. But in general, and I'm going to speak for all women here, which I don't typically do, we do not want heart-shaped things.
No?
No.
Not even 10-pound boxes of heart-shaped candy?
No.
The Russell Stover heart-shaped box? You don't want that. Why is this?
It just, no. And I would specifically say heart-shaped jewelry makes such a comeback around Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And it's so, what do the people say, chuggy, Hannah? No one wants a heart-shaped. I mean, the marketing gets people, and they're like, oh, for Valentine's Day, do I want a big fat diamond? Yes. Do I want a big fat diamond shaped in a heart? No.
See,
so
if
you wouldn't take it then?
I would not be. I have it, and you know what? It sits in my jewelry box.
I was going to say, like, heart-shaped things doesn't bother me a whole lot if it's, like, temporary things, so, like the packaging on chocolate. Like, that's obviously not something I'm going to hang on to. Yeah. But, yeah, I do think heart-shaped jewelry is a little cheesy.
So just a word to the wise, as Valentine, Randy is not buying this. If you wanted to buy like a full syringe of Botox or filler and donate it.
I'm glad you said it because I was thinking it.
A gift card to your lady's favorite salon or med spa would be way up there on the top of my list. You know what else people don't think about, but that would be on maybe not for Valentine's Day, but Mother's Day, certainly. A car detail, especially if you have little kids. Nothing feels good like getting into a car that's like feels like it's brand new again and doesn't have Cheerios smashed everywhere in it.
That's a good idea.
I do that
That's a really good idea.
I've done that for my parents before, and even made the appointment and said, you know what, here we go. We're gonna, fully detail your car for Mother's or Father's Day.
One of my favorite Valentine's things, which my husband and I, we don't really make a big fuss about Valentine's, but the Mizzou meat market usually does heart-shaped ribeyes, and I think that's like kind of like that to me is fun.
That's curious.
Yeah,
I would have never thunk it.
Heart-shaped food is kind of cute. I could
like
be on board with that.
Yeah, pizza places a lot of times will do like heart-shaped pizzas.
Oh yeah.
Well, Helene's such a big nutrition buff. She's going to be in tomorrow hanging out with us. We're going to do a little doctor's insight.
Get her some Mizzou meat market steaks.
How about some Mizzou salmon or just tuna steak in the shape of a heart? You think anyone's going to do that?
I don't know if Mizzou does tuna steaks.
Truman the tuna, a new mascot.
There were a lot of folks over Christmas that either did charcuterie or like veggie trays in the shape of a Christmas tree. I could see like a heart-shaped veggie platter.
Hey, Steele's Custom Meats in Jefferson City does burgers shaped like the Chiefs' arrowhead.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, they're cool.
I bet they could do hearts.
And the Chiefs are playing this weekend, Sunday night, right?
Boy, I tell you, what gets my goat is Should you see something on the road or hear something you'd like to comment on, text or call. That's the way to get in touch with us and be a part of the program. Joining us now is Diane Gillespie, who's with the Jefferson City Convention and Visitors Bureau. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me over today.
Well, thanks for being here. And, it's an exciting time because there's a lot of buzz in Jefferson City. I've heard a lot of interviews with the mayor and, talking with people about the proposed convention center. I guess, where are we on that now? And, give us an update to start with.
Sure. It's an exciting project. And as of right now, we did receive 2 proposals for the project, and there is a committee that is reviewing those proposals at this time.
All right. So is the time to submit those closed, or is it still open?
Yes, it closed a couple weeks ago.
Who's on the committee? Who's reviewing?
There's some folks we got the JFC rep, Jefferson City Regional Economic Partnership, the CVB. We have a couple city council people, a couple city folks, county, and a downtown association.
Diane, maybe walk us back through it for the listeners who aren't familiar with the proposal in downtown Jefferson City. As far as the site goes, it's a heck of a site, blocks from the Capitol and the governor's mansion.
Absolutely. It's a gorgeous site, and you couldn't pick a better site in my books. It's a prime location in Jefferson City, and why not try to use it in 2 different ways?
It's been one of those kind of deals, and you can relate to it as well as anybody, that we've gotten close in Jefferson City time and time again to getting a conference center, but the trigger just didn't get pulled.
Yeah, it's been difficult. I've been with the CVB for 10 years, and before that I was actually with the Springfield CVB, but before that I was with John Q. Hammond's Hotels. And I helped open Capitol Plaza. And that time, Mr. Hammonds was talking to the city about a convention center. So I kind of chuckled to myself saying, well, Mr. Hammonds, I'm still working at it. I'm still trying to get this done for Jefferson City. So it has been a long road. I truly feel like this is the perfect site for it, and that I think we have all the right people and the places to make everything happen.
Diane, I'm looking at the great website here, visitjeffersoncity.com. We were just talking about to rose or not to rose, to heart-shaped steak or not to heart-shaped steak for Valentine's Day. And I see that you have date night goals in JCMO. You're having some fun on the side, huh?
Yeah, why not? I heard that conversation, and I was kind of like with Stephanie. Yeah, no hearts, but give me somebody to clean my car and detail it for me.
And I'm getting hungry looking at a couple of shrimp wrapped around some asparagus and a beautiful steak and a glass of wine there. I'm thinking, my goodness. Oh, John.
Why not? 8:30 in the morning, it works.
John, I think you and I need to vet some of these places maybe and make sure that.
So.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea.
Absolutely.
A good idea. Yeah.
All in the interest of working for the Wake Up family and our listeners.
That's right. We're looking out for folks.
You're testing it for everybody and want to make sure it's good for your listeners.
So there's a downloadable visitor's guide as well for folks who maybe are. I mean, I know that Mid-Missouri in general is just it's a growing area population-wise. I mean, things are just exploding with employers bringing people in, a lot of retirees coming here. It's a great, great place to live. Yes. And for folks that don't know much about the Jefferson City area, there's a lot of history, and there's tours and other things. Tell us a little bit about some of the accommodations on the site and how people can get to know the area.
Sure. So you can download our visitor guide, or you can come by our office at 700 East Capitol in Jefferson City. We also have a kiosk down on High Street close to Eris's Pizza that has some information that you can pick it up. But, there's so much in Jefferson City. There is so much history. And so our tagline is Feel the History. Of course, you can go in and do the state capitol tours, which are great. Beautiful Capitol, and so many even locals have probably never been into the Capitol, or it's been a very long time. Kind of, you drive by it and you go, yeah, there's the Capitol, but visitors love coming in there. And it also has the State Museum located on the first floor. And around that area, there are several memorials and monuments, and then you can take the bridge down to Adrian's Island on the Bicentennial Bridge. And then you can go over to the Lewis and Clark monuments. They're on the corner of Jefferson and Capitol, Loman's Landing, the Governor's Gardens, the Mansion. If you travel on east onto Capitol, you will come to the Missouri State Penitentiary, which is the decommissioned prison in 2004, and we offer tours there March 1st through November 30th. And across the street from the Capitol, you also have the Supreme Court, which is a great site. So there's a lot right in that walking area that you can go to. And if you want to get in your car, you can travel out to the Military Museum and the Highway Patrol Museum and go the other direction west, and you can go to Runge. And there's just a lot of activities here in Jefferson City that you can take in.
Talk to us about MSP, the old MSP prison site.
Sure.
Since maybe an update, too, because going back to the tornado of a number of years ago, it took some pretty severe damage. Yeah. What exactly is open to people now if they haven't taken the MSP tour in a while?
Sure. In 2019 with the tornado, we did get hit hard on that site. The roofs on all the buildings had some damage, but on Housing Unit 4, which is the oldest building on the site, the roof was completely taken off of it. And so it sat for quite a while without a roof on it until we worked with the state and was able to put a roof back on it. So currently, all the buildings that we do the tours with, all 4 buildings are open for the tours. And we will start tours up March the 1st and run through November 30th. And you can go to our website, MissouriPennTours.com, and we have tours on that you can sign up for. And we also, right now, currently have many school groups that have already signed up for April and May. When those yellow buses come into the city. Yeah.
A lot of 4th graders.
A lot of them.
I think the interesting factoid about the Missouri State Penitentiary that even mid-Missourians who've lived here a long time don't realize, it opened for business the week the Alamo was under siege.
Yes. Yeah, how old it is and that history there. And,
wow.
And that's our mission, is to continue sharing the history, especially with our youth. So we enjoy doing the school groups because we want them to learn the history of not only Jefferson City, Cole County, but of Missouri and the United States. It was an important piece of history. So we want to maintain that.
And, you talked about, the tour of the Capitol. I remember doing that and getting the lowdown on that beautiful mural and how that just tells such a rich tapestry of Missouri's history.
Yeah, it is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
And we highly recommend that tour.
Let me just ask you a little bit something more about this conference center. And we occasionally get either through text or call or the back behind the scenes messaging about, why do we need a conference center? What are the vacancy rates? I mean, does the data say that, or is this just being pushed by a bunch of special interests that want to, that kind of pushback? What does the objective data say, and is it available to people that may be skeptical that can get on and find somewhere how there really is a genuine need to propel Jefferson City forward and build a new future?
Well, it has been a topic for many, many years, and in 2011, there was a tax that went to the residents to increase the lodging tax by 4%. Those 4% of that money would go toward a conference center. So this has been in discussion, and that money has been being collected since then. So when a visitor comes into town and they stay at a hotel, there is a 7% lodging tax that is added to their room rate. And of that, 4% goes toward a conference center fund, and the 3% goes to the CVB operation budget. So, we are the state capital, and we have over 125 state associations located in our community, along with state government. And all those associations have some type of meeting and events. Many of them have annual events. And there are many of those that we cannot accommodate in this community because we don't have a large enough facility. And what I mean by that, when those events are held, they have to have enough space to handle a general session for all their members, some breakout rooms for smaller meetings, meal functions, and many of them have exhibits. And with our current space that we have, there's many that they are just too small. And therefore, we see that type of business heading out to Columbia, Lake of the Ozarks, down to Springfield, St. Charles. And that's things that we should be able to handle here in our community. And that doesn't mean that we're going to get those events every year, but they rotate around the state. And if we could become that central location, it would be great for our community.
Yeah, certainly there are enough attractions, both in terms of just the cultural things we've talked about, as well as the great dining in the area.
Absolutely.
That, without that hub to house the main events, and some of those events are huge. I know. I think of the Missouri Hospital Association when I was leading a hospital. It would be at the lake or it would be somewhere. Well, if you're in November at the lake, you're not going to be swimming. Maybe John Marsh would be heading down to Party Cove. I'm not sure. But, I mean, most of us won't be doing that.
A little nippy for Party Cove.
But you know what I mean? I think you're so right. If you build a grand center there that has maybe even some internal options for shopping and boutiques and stuff, I mean, I could see that's a game changer. And, so we look forward to when those proposals will be, vetted. And then when does the decision finally come?
Well, J.C. Rep is leading the charge on this project, and we're keeping it moving. They've got a calendar that we're staying on track with. So, we hope by February that we can go to City Council with something and start the discussion with the selected developer that we go with and start working on the development agreement and plans. And we would hope they could start breaking ground either the end of the year or first of 25.
Yeah, that's super good. Hey, Diane, thank you very, very much for really giving us a great update on what's going on with the aspirational goals for that convention center that will definitely happen someday soon. Yes. And also for updating us on all the great things going in and around Jefferson City. Thanks very much for being with us. Have a great rest of your day. Appreciate
Thank you very much.
All right. There she is, Diane Gillespie. And again, the website is visitjeffersoncity.com. When we come back, we're going to check in with Hannah and see what's going on with leftovers. Stephanie had to step out for course, who's the chair of the Ways and Means Committee earlier. And Hannah, this I think all of the Iowa caucus and the upcoming New Hampshire primary, the wrangling is DeSantis going to quit? Is it really a two-person race? Is Haley just blowing hot gas? That's been taking a lot of precedence over the very serious policy negotiations going on. Are they going to fund the government? Apparently, they're going to be having a vote today in the Senate to do a clean bill, and then maybe they'll do something. But border security is still at the top of most of the listeners' list. I know it's the top of mine, and we're going to talk about that a little bit here. Here's Mike Johnson when he was asked about, how important is this, and is this a really a game breaker? Is this a red line? Listen.
If the best we can get does not solve the problem and not stem the flow, then it will not be acceptable on the House side. And I have said that very clearly from day one. We have to solve the problem. This is not about getting political points for one side or the other. It's about solving the problem that is now a crisis for every community. Every state is a border state now because people are going all across the country. And by the way, when we were at Eagle Pass, we found out that 60 to 70% of the people crossing the border down there are single adult males.
Okay. What does it mean for us? You know what it means for us? And I've asked people about this. I've asked politicians in this state. I've asked local officials. What are we doing to preempt that? Remember, Hannah, when we were at the governor's prayer breakfast, we talked to David Tyson Smith. Like, would you sponsor legislation to get ahead of when illegals are dropped off at our doorstep here? Well, we'll deal with that problem. Basically, what he says is we'll deal with that. It's not a problem right now. It's too late. It's too late then. It's like if we'd have had some homeless ordinances in place to combat what's going on now, we wouldn't be building a hotel for them. I think we should be preemptive about that. I'm glad Mike Johnson's doing that. Okay, enough for my political leftover. What's on your plate?
Well, I just thought it was ironic that everyone else ditched us. It's just the two of us finished out the show strong.
I know. What's that about?
Making way for Gary Nolan.
I know. Yeah. I see the star of the Gary Nolan show as isn't Brian in there? Yeah, the star of the Gary Nolan show. He's getting ready to go.
He's primping.
He's suiting up, getting ready. Is he putting his makeup on?
He is.
Okay,
yes.
That's very, very important.
I think he's borrowing some of Stephanie's stuff that is left over in here.
Yeah, I'm getting nervous because we have this photo shoot that you ladies are looking. Well, you ladies are looking so spectacular, and us guys are just us guys. I mean, we're just guys. We can't look spectacular.
Oh, that's not true.
It makes me nervous. Yeah, well, thank God for Photoshop. LG can make a silk purse out of a sow's ear with that, maybe.
I'm not gonna vouch for his editing that
great.
He may or may not do.
He's great.
Sometimes though, you got to be careful because he's also a prankster.
Oh.
And he loves to get shots of you like making an ugly face photoshopping you into weird situations. So you got to be careful.
That sounds like a blackmail maneuver.
Well, my favorite part of when we do show photos, and I've done this over the years, every time I've been a part of a show photo shoot, is posting the outtakes.
Oh, yeah.
And, sharing those with the Wake Up family on the Wake Up Mid-Missouri Facebook page. So be looking for those in the coming days. They're usually pretty entertaining, and our mouths are usually open in a lot of them because we talk a lot. So.
Yeah, no, and it's a lot of fun when you have those because there's always those outtakes. Sometimes those are the best part of some movies. You wait till the very end and you get the outtakes, and you're really glad you stayed for that part. Yeah, that's always good. Hey, I want to make sure that you all are checking out the web pages, KWS.com or 939theeagle.com, and learn about this is going to be a trip of a lifetime that you can travel with Scotty and me. My wife's going to come along. Helene's going to be there.
Oh, nice.
And to Switzerland, Austria, Bavaria. We dabbled a little bit in Switzerland, northern Switzerland, just for a day or two when we visited our son when he was studying in Germany, several years ago. But I really can't wait to delve into it. I mean, it's going to be fantastic. Colette does such a great job. We're going to have an informational meeting on February 27th here at the Zimmer Communications headquarters on Lamone Industrial, right off of 63. Very easy to get to. 10 days. 13 meals. Oh, yeah. Flight
That's
on there.
That's the important part, right?
Oh, yeah. It's the meals. And I can't wait to get Helene's assessment of what's going on there.